Okay, let's talk about task evidence. This is a relatively new feature that we've just enabled. Just for this purposes of this demo, I'm logged in as two different people. So this view, I'm logged in as myself, and I'm going to take the advisor role. And I'm also logged in under this window as a student. This guy's name is Peter Penguin. So I'm going to show you what task evidence looks like from both the teacher and from the student point of view. So let's start with the context of just a regular student personal project. So this is a project that the student's working on by themselves, and they have one advisor overseeing their work. So I'm going to go to the task board, and I'm going to open up this first task that he's created. Now notice this toggle switch is here like it was before, but now when you toggle a task that requires evidence, you'll notice this new evidence tab up here. And that's where evidence is managed, both from a student and a teacher perspective. So if I'm Peter Penguin here and I want to submit evidence that I've actually completed this task, or maybe I just want to save it as I kind of go, I go in here, I toggle requires evidence to complete, and now I'm free to add my information. So I have a file here waiting, so I'm just going to drag this file in. And that's going to be part of my evidence. I can have as many files as I want. I can choose Google Docs, I can choose links. So whatever evidence is kind of required, this is just meant to be a container to hold a link to that piece of evidence. And then they're welcome to put in a description. Please review the attached document. Okay, and they can submit it. So now that's actually submitted in, the student can kind of move on. They can also submit multiple evidence revisions. So if a teacher gives feedback, say, on that they need to improve this, they can go and they add a new version, and it saves every version. So you can kind of see how that particular task progressed over time. So if I switch over now to the advisor view, you'll notice this little indicator came up to show that I have, when I look at this task board, I can clearly see when there's evidence for me to take a look at as an advisor. So I can open up that task, I can click on the evidence tab, and now I can view Peter Penguin's submission. There you'll notice this discussion down here. This is private between the advisor and whatever student submitted this particular piece of evidence. So I can ask them to revise something. Please revise section B. Okay, and now that comment is actually a part of the student that they can see. They can need to do a new revision and upload a new file. So that's what it looks like from an individual student completing a project. Now let's jump to what it looks like for a teacher-led project. So in this case, I'm going to use this demo project I have here. So I'm going to go under go to my task board again, and I'm just going to take a look at this solution exploration one. So again, you notice the toggle evidence switch is here. Everything looks the same in the teacher-led context pretty much, but when I click on the evidence tab now, in this particular project I had 3 students participating, and so now I can kind of list of all the students participating, whether they've submitted evidence and when they submitted evidence. So in this particular case, these 2 students have submitted as a group, so they're actually grouped together. Peter Penguin hasn't submitted anything yet. So let's jump over to Peter Penguin, and I'm going to go back to this project, and I'm going to go into that. And I'm going to open up that same task. So now you'll notice that the student has the evidence tab as well. It looks a little different because they obviously don't see the list of students participating. They just see their own stuff. So in this case, I'm going to add that same file as before. Here is my solution. Okay, and I'm going to submit that in. So now if I switch back, I'm just going to refresh that. Okay, so now I can see that evidence submitted by Peter Penguin, and if I click in as a teacher, I get to see it. I can write a comment as I did before, and I can look at the other students who've submitted. Now you'll notice that these guys are grouped together, And so if Peter Penguin wanted to submit a group project or a group submission, that way you don't have multiple submissions if they all did the same thing, they worked on a presentation together or a report together. They don't have to all submit the evidence individually, they can just submit it together. So that was, if under here, Peter can kind of go back in, he can actually add another person if he wanted to. Okay, so you can submit things individually, or you can submit them as groups. If you had one student and they wanted to include the rest of the class, they can do that. That's up to you to kind of decide. Now the last thing I'll point out in this particular demo is you notice these checkboxes here. The way this works is pretty much like email. So once you've viewed it, it'll have a checkbox. If for some reason I wanted to come back to it later, mark it, maybe I just took a quick look, but I want to do a more thorough look later, just like you would with an email, I actually can mark it as unviewed. And when I do that, it pretends like I haven't looked at it yet. It also retains that little checkbox, so I can remember that I have to go back later to take a look at that. Okay, so that's how evidence is used, and basically that gives you a flexible way to collect the more formative or the process pieces of a project as the project progresses. So at any given time you can go back and you can take a look at individual tasks and see what was done to actually complete that task.